Media coverage now, because there are new questions being raised about the mainstream media's coverage of a recent poll that came out on President Obama. In a poll that questioned more Democrats than Republicans, 1 in 3 registered voters said that President Obama is the worst of the 12 presidents that we have had since World War II. While some media outlets flatly ignored the poll, pretended that it didn't even exist, others downplayed the bad news for President Obama. Howie Kurtz, host of Fox News' Media Buzz, and Lauren Ashburn, Fox News contributor, joins us now. Welcome to you both. Good to have you here.
Thank you, Martha.
So, do you think that statement is true? Did they ignore it, Howard?
This poll got a lot of coverage. It should have gotten more. It's a fascinating poll. There's no doubt that Barack Obama is unpopular, but let's be honest. It's a kind of a quirky poll because when this question is asked, worst president, people tend to think of either the incumbent or his immediate predecessor. Same question, same poll, 2006, George W. Bush, worst president, 34%, Bill Clinton, 16%, Richard Nixon, who was driven out of office for crimes and a cover-up, 17%. So I think... Go ahead.
Howie, I'm sorry. The pundits are making a lot of excuses for this poll. They're saying, oh, the sample size is too small, the wording is wrong, oh, well, presidents in their second term always are down in the polls, when the reality is that President Obama has had a disastrous second term. At the VA, IRS, you were talking about it, this immigration issue, Iraq. And those are the reasons that the poll numbers are down.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt in my mind, as someone who does this every day, as you do, that this is worth discussing. This story, right? So there are, ABC didn't cover it, NBC didn't cover it. I guess Chuck Todd made a mention of it, but he said, that these polls are just a moment in time kind of thing. And when we looked back in 2006, George W. Bush, as you said, got the same moniker, worst president since World War II, and they called the same poll devastating for him, Howard.
You know what news organizations like to do? They like to play up their own polls, which they pay a lot of money for. So when Chuck Todd said that voters basically thought Barack Obama's presidency was over when an NBC Wall Street Journal poll said that a majority didn't think that he was competent to run the government. This Quinnipiac poll had the same finding. This is why Barack Obama is getting the worst coverage of his presidency in the past year, because he hasn't accomplished, as you said, anything in the second term, but he's not getting an easy ride from the press.
Yes, he is in many ways getting an easy ride from the press. Howie, take a look at the Washington Post story today that talked about his social media office and how great that was doing. And how does he get notes in the White House Oval Office? He gets them when his secretary comes in and she gives them to him. The world is falling apart. And the Washington Post is focusing on notes and how they're handed to the president.
I just think the press, some of which swooned over Barack Obama in 2008 and in the first term, is now disillusioned with him, think that he can't get anything accomplished with Congress, think that he's treating him like a lame duck. And I think that's reflected, don't you, in the way in which he's trying to turn the blame from Congress.
Well, he turns it on the media.
I mean, I saw over the weekend, the D.C. bureau chief of the New York Times said that he was incompetent, that there were questions about the competency of the president. I think that, the tide has turned in many ways, and that reporters at some point are forced to do their job and actually cover the story that's out there. In this case, many of them ignored this poll, and I can't figure out why, because I think it's a great topic of conversation. I mean, it's interesting, especially since it was heavily Democratic, 31%. Independents made up 35% of this poll.
It is an interesting poll. It was not covered as much as it should be, but there are a lot of other polls that haven't been covered as much either that also show him down. And what he's doing to combat this is he is turning on the media, saying Fox News is to blame for the reason that he isn't getting things done in his administration, or Rush Limbaugh, or whoever his target is.
Well, now it's just the press and the pundits, and I don't understand this tactic. I don't think it makes Obama look strong to say.
But he also says when he finds out things, I learned about it in the press. So apparently he is paying attention. He's reading things somewhere.
Right, but it's kind of escaped the media's notice at this point, Martha, that he always seems to be behind the curve when it comes to these revelations of scandals and now the mess in Iraq. The idea that he's getting an easy ride now, polls or no polls, is just not happening.
I'm not saying an easy ride, Howie. I'm not saying that, everybody is still like they were when he was elected or before he was electing in this big euphoria. But there are still large parts of the mainstream media who think he walks on water.
They've all moved on to Hillary. They're practically starting the Hillary Clinton
when you think
administration.
about it, I think about, you talk about Fox and, the stories that we covered for a long time, healthcare, for example, the IRS, for example, and those issues are now, finally have picked up some traction in these other news outlets. I mean, they're not, routinely paying attention to them.
One of the reasons, I think, is that mainstream folks like Jonathan Karl from ABC, around the email that came out talking about talking points and how they were revised around the Benghazi scandal, they started to say, hey, wait a minute, what are you talking about here? So yes, I think the tide is turning.
Diane Sawyer, in her interview with Hillary Clinton, spent a whole segment on Benghazi, so it's hardly just Fox News at this point.
Howard, Lauren, thank you very much. Great to see you guys. I love your show, and it's great to have you here in person tonight. Thanks so much. Love to.
Appreciate
see you then. Okay, thanks, guys.